And Stella, we're good to go.
Okay. Good morning. Welcome to our Autism BC talk. I'm Stella Hui with Autism BC. Today we have Sarah Armstrong here with us. Sarah is our guest speaker. Hi, Sarah.
Hi, Stella.
So Sarah is the Navigator of Youth and Adult Services with the Canucks Autism Network. Sarah is going to share with us today the Ready, Willing, and Able employment program and community supports for youth and adults on the autism spectrum. So Facebook friends, please type your questions on the comment box during Sarah's presentation. And Zoom audience, please type your questions on the chat box. And Sarah will try to address your question at the end of her PowerPoint presentation. Are you ready, Sarah?
I'm ready to go.
Yeah. Okay, let's get started.
Okay, great. Well, thank you so much, Stella and everyone at Autism BC for having me here today to speak to you about the Ready, Willing, and Able program, our employment program, as well as some of the other supports for youth and adults with autism offered by the Canucks Autism Network. So as Stella said, my name is Sarah Armstrong. I am the Navigator of Youth and Adult Services with the Canucks Autism Network. Myself, as well as two other team members, help to facilitate the Ready, Willing, and Able program with the Canucks Autism Network. So, you know, I've been with CAN for close to 7 years now, working in a variety of different programs. Started off as a support worker, working in some of our sport and recreation programs, as well as a coach and an on-site supervisor. And then have kind of moved into our youth and adult programming, where I've acted as our youth and adult program coordinator. And now most recently, I have joined our employment team, helping youth and adults on their journey to employment. So today, you know, I'll be giving a bit of an overview of the Ready, Willing, and Able program. You might hear me referring to the program as RWA. We'll talk about how the program works for both employers and job seekers. I'll focus more of my attention on supports available for job seekers and my role specifically in helping them on their path to employment. We'll also talk briefly about some of the different agencies and services that are currently offered in the community. And lastly, we'll talk about the Canucks Autism Network and other community programming focused on, you know, social connection, mental health, life skills, and physical activities. And I'll also talk a little bit about how the Canucks Autism Network is currently changing our programs to offer online programming during this time of social distancing. All right, so the Ready, Willing, and Able program is actually a national initiative funded by the Government of Canada, and it's in partnership with the Canadian Association of Community Living and the Canadian Autism Spectrum Disorder Alliance, also known as CASDA. So the aim of the program is really to increase the labor force participation, or in other words, the number of people working who have autism or an intellectual disability. The program started in 2014. Some of you may have heard of it before, but it's now entering its second phase of delivery. So it's functioning a little bit differently, which we'll talk about in a minute. And it's currently running in over 20 communities across Canada. So here in BC, the program is offered through two delivery partners, Inclusion BC and the Canucks Autism Network. So for those of you who don't know, Inclusion BC is a not-for-profit organization that works with partners and community to advocate for children, youth, and adults with intellectual disabilities. The Canucks Autism Network, of course, where I work, is an organization that provides programming for individuals with autism, their families, as well as various training and community engagement initiatives to promote acceptance and inclusion. Our vision at CAN, you know, is for every individual with autism to be understood, supported, and accepted in all community spaces. So I'll talk a little bit now about the RWA model and how it works for both employers and job seekers. So RWA's model is really designed to connect businesses to a broad pool of candidates with autism or an intellectual disability. Once those candidates are hired for a job, the program works to really try to find success and support for that individual on the job by providing simultaneous and complementary supports for both the employer and the job seeker or employee. So for employers, RWA really acts as a single point of contact for a broad pool of job candidates from various employment agencies. So it really helps to connect that employer to those employment agencies that are supporting individuals with autism. Across Canada and across BC, the program has established a network and partnerships with many different employment agencies. The support offered for either that employee or that employer really is going to depend on the unique situation and the needs of those individuals. So for some, that support could look like a standing desk, one-on-one job coaching, maybe even access to a quiet space. For some employers, they might require training for an entire organization. The program also works to support job seekers, prior to finding employment. So helping them navigate the many different organizations and services that are out there in the community to really find what the best fit is for that individual. So really RWA acts to, or intends to act as a link between businesses, job seekers, community agency partners in the community. With all that said, I just want to acknowledge, this model, it's going to look really different province to province or community to community. And, here in BC, there certainly are some gaps in the system for people with autism looking for employment. And, part of my role is really trying to identify where those gaps are and address them. So in terms of the employer side, employer engagement, my colleague Ross McMillan, he's our employer engagement specialist. So he really helps to generate business demand to hire inclusively. So he connects employers with employment service agencies who are supporting people with autism. So when a job is generated from an RWA employer, Ross will then share that job posting with those community agency partners who can then share it with the appropriate job seekers. And then in terms of employer engagement, this is really where I come in. So as CAN's Navigator of Youth and Adult Services, I engage with job seekers who are looking for employment and connect them to supports and services in their community, really with the ultimate goal of helping them obtain competitive employment. But really what that support looks like is really going to be dependent on that person and their individual goals. So, I'll give just a little bit of an overview kind of what I do, and we'll go into a little bit more detail about how job seekers and those supporting job seekers can connect directly with me. So in my role, I do direct outreach. So outreach to people who have autism, who are looking for employment, as well as those groups, families, associations, educational institutes who may be supporting those people. When an individual gets in touch with me, and I'll talk about how to do that in a minute, I will complete a bit of an intake and assessment. So really this would help me to determine, their strengths, support needs, employment goals. And then from there, I would do a direct referral to a service or support in the community, or possibly even some existing employment opportunities. Sometimes for individuals, we might also do a referral internally to some of the other supports that CAN is offering. And lastly, a big part of my role is ongoing system and service navigation. So what that really means is doing research and continuing to find resources and better understanding the system to help job seekers and, to ensure that they don't have to be doing that research on their own. So eligibility criteria. So in order for an individual to access our navigational services, they must self-identify as having autism. So just note, we don't require any kind of formal diagnosis, just self-identify. The individual must be legally entitled to work in Canada and must also be of legal working age, meaning over the age of 16, in order to apply for positions. So with that in mind, definitely still open to connecting with those who are over the age of 13 and can help provide some suggestions and supports around pre-employment and any other area of support that person might need. Just also want to mention that you do not need a CAN membership to access the navigational services. So we'll talk about CAN in a minute, but no membership is needed, and the service is entirely free. And one other thing to note here is that while it's not an official criteria, we really want the applicant to identify securing employment as a goal. So, it's really suitable for individuals who, may be looking for their first job and they're just not sure where to look. It can also be suitable for those who, maybe are having a hard time holding down a job. They've had multiple positions, but, they require a bit of support and are looking for where to go for that support. These supports are, also applicable for individuals who are currently employed. But are having a hard time and are looking for some support. So, the program is not necessarily suitable for someone who is not interested in employment. Even if parents and guardians are really wanting to see employment as a goal for that person, we really want the individual to want to find a job and to want to access employment. As well as individuals who may be already accessing employment services that are working for them and they're happy. If that's the case, if you already have support, this may not necessarily be the best service for you. Just because it is more autism specific, doesn't necessarily mean that you need to access the service if you're already happy with the current supports that you have. So if any individual is interested in accessing the Navigator supports, they can go to our website and complete an intake form. So I've included the link here, and I'll have it again at the end of the presentation. They can also contact me directly. So happy to contact or to connect with someone over email or over the phone. Following that person completing an intake form, I'll set up a time to meet with them in person. Typically this would be in person, and I often would try to go out to the community and meet someone in a setting that they're comfortable with. Of course, given everything with COVID-19, we are not doing assessments in person at this time. So for now and for the near future, we will be doing assessments over Zoom or over the phone. But we hope soon to be able to do them in person again. And so, we'll complete the assessment and review an individual's resume if applicable, and talk through some of the different referral options. One thing I know for a lot of folks is that doing assessments and being asked questions, there can be a lot of overlap in some of the questions, and it can be really overwhelming to do assessment after assessment with different agencies and supports. So, when possible, if the individual gives consent, we always try to share information when possible with other supports to really minimize kind of that duplication for that person. All right, so following that assessment, I'll refer the job seeker really to the most appropriate service or support in the community, depending on their unique needs, the eligibility criteria, and location where they live. Following an individual being referred, I'll follow up just to make sure that everything went okay with both the person and the agency or community support. And we'll continue to kind of check in between a 3 to 6 month period just to make sure everything's going okay. Also note that, I'll check in, but primarily what I do is a referral service. So we're not offering one-on-one case management. We're really looking to refer that person to those supports that are existing in the community. One other thing to note too is that, if an individual meets with me and does an assessment, they may choose also to find employment on their own. They may not want to be connected with an agency or support, which is totally fine. So, if that is the case, then I can send them any RWA generated job postings directly. And they don't need to go through an agency to get those job postings. So I'm always happy to do that if an individual prefers to go that way instead of connecting with an agency. And, it's also important to note that in some cases, after doing an assessment, may not feel like a job seeker is really ready for seeking employment for various reasons. And in these cases, I can, of course, refer them to non-employment supports. And letting them know, when they're ready, they can come back and access those RWA navigational services. So possible challenges including, addiction, mental health, suicide. We want to make sure that those concerns are addressed prior to someone looking for employment. But we can certainly help someone find those appropriate supports. All right, so this slide here is very busy. As you can see, I just really want to emphasize that there are a lot of different services and programs out there, many of which not shown on this slide. This is a very much a snapshot, and it can be extremely challenging for individuals, for families to navigate all these programs and services on your own. So really, in my role, is to do the research for you, right? To look for all the information, to work with the individual to make the best decision for which supports and which services to access. So you by no means need to go through the slide and understand what everything is. But really what I want to kind of show is that, I know you'll see that, services and supports will vary very much depending if an individual is eligible for Community Living BC programs and services. For those of you who don't know Community Living BC, it's the provincial Crown corporation that funds supports and services for adults with developmental disabilities, autism, fetal alcohol syndrome. And if an individual is eligible for Community Living BC, CLBC services, there are a variety of organizations available for those job seekers who are CLBC eligible. And generally, the process for connecting to those employment supports is relatively more straightforward if that eligibility for CLBC is met. If an individual is not CLBC eligible, many job seekers have, expressed having a bit more challenge in finding some of those agencies and supports who can best support them. So, that's really where I can come in to help with that navigation. There are various agencies out there who, some have expertise in certain areas. I'll just point out a few here. Orbital Learning is an example of one based out of the Lower Mainland here in Vancouver. They offer specialized training for those who want to work in professional fields such as technology, accounting, administration, and for those individuals who just don't know where to start. Another one to highlight, Back in Motion. They have a specialty program in warehousing. So teaching those introductory skills to working in a warehouse. Pacific Community Resource Society has a program specific to barista training. And one other program I'll point out is WorkBC. So WorkBC functions almost as a one-stop shop for all British Columbians who are looking to find employment. So this can also be an option for some individuals. So again, I certainly don't expect anyone to understand the ins and outs of these programs and services. And it's certainly still a new learning process for me. But really, we can help to reduce some of the barriers around navigating all these different options on your own. And, again, we do acknowledge that there are gaps in the system, and we're hoping to help identify those gaps and make the process of finding the best supports just a bit easier for those job seekers. So different employment agencies will offer different types of support. And again, it's really going to be dependent on what that individual needs and where they are on their path to employment. For some people, some of those supports might be around pre-employment. So things such as resume building, job hunting and interview skills. For others, they might need some more assistance with life skills. So things like learning how to take transit independently. Some employment agencies will really take an individualized approach where they may even modify existing job positions to focus on the strengths of the employee. Sometimes this is what is referred to as job carving. Some individuals might also be interested in self-employment. So agencies can help support around developing a business plan and entrepreneurial skills. For others, assistive technology might be something they require. Access to a quiet space in a workplace. Some agencies can also provide training for employees. So, what else can RWA help with? So the employment agency partner, who supports the individual with autism, who is hired, will work with RWA to determine support needs for that individual. And training. So beyond traditional training, RWA can really act as a source of autism expertise for both service providers and for employers. RWA can also assist with funding for workplace supports and accommodations. So things like job coaching, assistive technology, access to a quiet space, work clothing and gear, and transportation. So, why is employment important? We really know that individuals who are employed have proven to have improved quality of life, decreased levels of anxiety and depression, in general, improved mental and physical health. We also really know that the social aspect of employment is often really tied to job satisfaction, and it can be a really important means of social inclusion and social connection. Even when I think of, myself in my job, having friends and social connections at work is a really big part of my job satisfaction. Getting to see certain people on a regular basis and building those social connections is really important for everyone. So, what if someone's not ready for employment? That's totally okay. It's really important to acknowledge that everyone's path to employment is going to look a little bit differently. So for some, this may mean, gradual entry or exposure to employment-related activities. Other important areas, to really gain confidence and independence in, which can be complementary to employment, such as learning to cook, taking transit, building social connections, volunteering. These are all really key to the success in employment, even if that employment is in the future. We know that building good social connections, having good mental health, developing life skills are really important, even when looking for employment and also when holding down a job. So it is really important to experience some of those extracurricular activities, such as the ones offered by CAN, which I'll touch on very soon, which can really help a job seeker positively prior to, during, and after a job search. All right, so that brings us to kind of the next portion of this webinar, which is around our other youth and adult programs offered by the Canucks Autism Network. So note that, during COVID-19, we are currently not offering any programs in the community at this time, but we hope to do so in the near future. And I'll be talking a bit more about some of the ways that we are supporting youth and adults virtually during this time. So, at CAN, we offer programs for youth and adults over the age of 13. Our programs are really around having fun, meeting new people in the community, trying a variety of exciting, fun activities in a variety of settings. So, all of our programs really welcome all abilities. We recognize that the needs of youth and adults in that population really differ greatly from our children's programs. And we need to support our youth and adults during this time of transition. So these program areas are actually in direct response from requests from our youth leadership group, as well as membership surveys, including families, parents, guardians, and youth and adults themselves, who really asked for a more diverse stream of programs for youth and adults participants. So as many of you know, the unique features of autism, including challenges with social communication, make this a population really especially vulnerable to social isolation. And we know that social isolation is strongly correlated with depression and anxiety. So inclusive community programming really helps to reduce that social isolation and maintain good mental health and build skills and confidence to be active for life. So one initiative that was launched in 2018 is our youth leadership group. And really it was established to increase the opportunities for youth and adults to take a leadership position within the organization. We really recognize and continue to develop better strategies to engage with youth and adult members to highlight their voices when it comes to program decisions, our marketing collateral, fundraising initiatives, community engagement. We've also seen a growing number of youth and adults as guest writers for our blogs and our social media. Really it's an opportunity for youth and adults to make decisions when it comes to the programs we offer, our communications, our community engagement. And we try to offer the meeting at least once per season. Right now, because of COVID-19, it's been a little bit delayed, but we'll be having our next virtual meeting on June 4th, so next week. One program that I'd like to highlight is our Explore volunteering program. So this is a great program to provide opportunities for youth and adults to sample a range of volunteering tasks in different community settings. The program is really focused on developing that volunteer experience, but also developing skills that are going to be really successful for that individual's path to employment. So developing work skills and some social communication skills for working with other individuals. So the program, is an 8-week program, and typically, again, we're not offering it at the moment, but we hope to be offering it very soon. And the way the program works is that each week, the group will go to a different location to volunteer. So some examples of past locations have included the Union Gospel Mission, washing cars, doing janitorial service, Stanley Park Ecology Society, gardening, Vancouver International Airport, doing custodial services, customer service, Rogers Arena, doing food preparation for events and concerts. So it's really good to get a range of experience for individuals to find out, what they're interested in and to gain that experience. So we do really recommend this program for individuals who are interested in getting their foot in the door when it comes to volunteer and employment. The program really looks to provide youth and adults with autism with the same experience of other Canadian youth. Employment-related experiences really do act as strong indicators for long-term job success. The program really does work to teach responsibility, dependability, things like arriving on time, and appropriate work behavior. And I'll also mention, our other youth and adult programs. So, those kind of 4 areas I mentioned that our leadership group has helped us define. We offer a range of programming, usually in either a weekly or monthly format. Weekly programs can range from things such as fitness to dragon boating, weekly meetups, and monthly opportunities, things such as transit workshops, resume building, technology workshops with community partners like Microsoft, woodworking, and then other fun things like mini golf and beach walks, snowshoeing. We really try to provide a wide variety of programming so that everyone can find something that works for them. Our programs are located in the Lower Mainland, Kelowna, Nanaimo, Victoria, Kamloops, And again, typically year-round, but at this time, we are not currently offering any in-person programs because of COVID-19. And that brings us to our online programs that we are currently offering for youth and adults. So we really recognize that this time can be really difficult for those individuals who rely on those weekly and monthly opportunities for that social connection. So we're doing what we can to try to reduce that social isolation and continue to build routine and connection for youth and adults. So in an effort to do that, we've launched some programs and systems for youth and adults with autism during this time. So one of them has been a bi-weekly newsletter. So we've been sending youth and adults resources that support physical and mental health, letting individuals know about upcoming online program opportunities, and also giving a bit of a platform for youth and adults to share their stories and experiences during this time. We've launched an online fitness program. So this is a weekly program to participate in a workout from home, led by a certified personal trainer and CAN staff. The fitness session is for all ages, or sorry, not all ages, 13 plus, I would say all levels, and really focuses on aerobic endurance, strength, flexibility, and we're currently offering that program, and we will be offering it into the summer. We also offer online meetups, so a weekly opportunity for youth and adults with autism to meet, connect, play games, share ideas for how to stay busy at home. And we use the application Zoom for these programs. And again, they're mediated by CAN staff, and we have different facilitators and guests coming each week. What's really been great to see with these programs is that participants and youth and adults from all across BC, are able to connect with each other and bond and build friendships when typically in an in-person program, that just wouldn't be possible because of where they lived. So it's really been great to see how successful they have been. And we've also been doing Netflix watching parties. So these are going to be happening, continuing to happen every other week. And it's a really fun opportunity for youth and adults to socialize, enjoy a movie together. Participants, have to access using their own Netflix account, but they'll be provided a link by a CAN staff where they can join the party. The CAN staff will introduce different games and activities such as bingo and trivia while watching the movies. So for individuals interested in signing up for online programs, if you're already a CAN member, you can sign up through your online account. All of the CAN online offerings are on our website, so you can find them there. And I haven't mentioned every single one. There are other opportunities as well. So I highly recommend that you do visit our website and check those out. And if you're not yet a CAN member, you can also still become a member. So, visiting our website, clicking on Become a Member, and then from there, you would fill out an application. But just to remind everyone again that there is no CAN membership required for the RWA navigational supports and services. So, so no need to become a member to access some of those employment supports. All right, and lastly, here is some of my contact information. So if an individual would like to connect with me, they can do so by emailing me, also by phoning. I'm happy to connect either way, or if they want to complete an intake form for the RWA navigational supports, I have copied the link here for that intake form. And that brings me to the end of my presentation. So I'll give it back to Stella to start with some of the questions.
Yeah, sure. Thank you so much, Sarah. I will start with one question from Isabel, who's a parent of an adult. So Isabel's question is, do you have programs that support university students with autism who are looking for co-op or internship? And her child is studying computer science.
Great, yes. So RWA with our navigational support can also help to find support for students who are in post-secondary who are looking for additional support. So yes, that is something that I would be able to connect with you about to help to determine the best supports.
Okay, thank you, Sarah. Another question from a parent of a teen. Once in a youth and adult program, is the group fairly consistent so connections can be made, or does it change depending on demand and space?
That's a great question. And, you know, for the most part with our in-person programming, we do offer it on a seasonal basis. So typically programs will be running from 6 to 8 weeks, and sign up does happen each season. So, you know, with that in mind, yes, we do see different participants signing up each season. So the program makeup might look a little bit different season to season. But that also really depends on the specific program and community. There's some programs where we do see the same participants who are enrolling, whereas others, it might look a little bit different each season. We do, of course, you know, encourage participants who have made some connections with others in programs to, you know, build those connections outside of programs and help to facilitate that. But no, we certainly do see a little bit of variation in each program in terms of who is registering.
Thank you, Sarah. So here's another question from a parent, Jacqueline. She asks, would you use siblings 16 plus to volunteer with the RWA?
So siblings 16 plus or volunteer with RWA. So with RWA, you know, it is more of a referral service. So when an individual would connect with me, I would then connect that person with a community agency or support. But where, you know, a sibling might be able to volunteer and support would be with our Explore Volunteering program. So with that program, the one I mentioned where individuals go out in the community each week to volunteer in different community space, we do have peer mentors who are volunteering alongside those individuals. And that would be a great opportunity for a sibling to volunteer in a program like that.
Yeah, so thank you. Here's another question from Eve. Just a moment. So Eve asks, does RWA support individuals with an intellectual disability that are not autistic?
So yes, the program does support individuals with intellectual disabilities, but in terms of my navigational support, that is just for individuals who have autism. So the jobs generated by RWA are available for those with intellectual disabilities and autism. So if that individual with an intellectual disability is supported by an agency, they can certainly still apply for RWA positions. But in order to access my navigational services, an individual must need to self-identify as having autism.
Okay, got it. Here's another question. Do you have opportunity for a postgraduate musician who was diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder last year?
Yes, certainly. So really it's for individuals over the age of 13 with various education experience and interests and skills. We'll do everything we can to find the appropriate service depending on an individual's unique needs and interests. So we could certainly look to provide supports for an individual.
Okay, very good. So here's a question. Are you serving adults living in group home?
Yep. We will serve any individual who meets that other eligibility criteria, regardless of where they're living, and certainly individuals in group homes can access the navigational services.
Okay, so here's another comment or question from Eve. She said that she works in Richmond, and she asked, are there any RWA or CAN supports occurring in Richmond?
Yeah, great question. So In terms of RWA, the program is focused throughout the Lower Mainland. So we do serve the Richmond area, and we do have job postings that will come out of Richmond all across the Lower Mainland, really, as well as employment agencies that we connect with in Richmond as well. So certainly, yes, if an individual who lives in Richmond is looking to connect with me, they certainly can. In terms of our CAN programming, we don't currently have any specific programs that are offered on a weekly basis in the Richmond area. We do, however, have our monthly opportunities, and we do sometimes do programming in Richmond, but it really does vary each month and program to program.
Okay, thank you, Sarah. Another question. You have lots of questions.
Yes.
Okay, so this parent said that she's interested in the Explore volunteering program for her teen daughter. And she asked, is that ongoing enrollment or a set program dates and also not happening now due to COVID-19? And she said that she's sorry she already forgot.
Oh, that's okay. A lot of information at once. No problem. Yes, so programming or registration for the Explore volunteering does happen seasonally. So it's not necessarily rolling. Of course, if there are spots in the program, we will leave it open for individuals to sign up if they miss the registration dates. So right now, yes, because of COVID-19, unfortunately, we can't offer any community programming, but we really hope to get back to it as soon as we can into the fall. So what will happen is the registration period will be open and an individual can sign up. And then from there, you would receive notification if you have been enrolled in the program. So yes, unfortunately, right now we're not offering it, but we hope to again in the near future.
Yeah, very good. So here is a question from the BC Interior from Angela. So Angela asks if they can use this service in BC Interior. I guess she's talking about RWA in BC Interior.
Yeah, great question. So, in terms of the employer engagement and some of the job positions with RWA, those are almost all based out of the Lower Mainland. But in terms of our navigational support and what I can offer, I'm still, of course, happy to meet with anyone across BC in their community to help find supports that are appropriate in the community for that person. So I would be happy to connect with you about current supports that are offered in the interior and to help make some recommendations.
Yeah, very good. So I got a question from Facebook, from Josh on Facebook. Josh asks, are there any in-person or online mentorship opportunities for participants? Where can they meet with a mentor in the community?
Great question. So, I think right now, because of COVID-19, of course, there are fewer in-person kind of programs. But in terms of mentorship opportunities, there certainly are some agencies and supports that would offer kind of that one-on-one support. So, for a job seeker, it really would depend on kind of where they are on their journey and what kind of mentorship that they might be looking for. But no, I would be happy to connect with Josh to talk about where he is and what kind of support he's looking for. But certainly, yes, I can recommend some services for mentorship in post-secondary. SFU typically runs a mentorship program, but we really depend on where the individual is. And again, right now, just because of COVID-19, it is a little bit tricky to say what programs are currently running and not running.
Mm-hmm. Very good. So now there are not other questions for now, but I have a question about job coaching. So I'm wondering, like, how long, if a person needs job coach after they get a job, how long will job coaching be available for the individual?
Yeah, it's a great question. So there isn't really any, start and end time to how long a job coaching would last for a person. It really depends on their support needs and the needs of that individual. The hopes with job coaching is that it is something that, would be temporary and that eventually that individual would not require those on the job supports. But typically, what would happen is an individual might have a job coach for more hours to start with, and then gradually that job coach would step away. So, there isn't really a minimum or maximum amount of time that job coach would stay. And that's something that can also be discussed with the employer and the individual to determine what they're looking for.
Okay, very good. So there's a question from Joe from Zoom. Joe said that this may get covered during the presentation, but given that RWA has connections with inclusive employers, do they or can they work closely with school boards to assist autistic youth in their grade 10, 11, 12 work experience placements? I'd like my son to have a meaningful placement. Quite specifically, he has expressed an interest in TransLink that has a chance to get into employment when he leaves school.
Yeah, that's a great question. And we have collaborated with the Vancouver School Board to talk about how we can work together. One point to consider that if an individual is a full-time student, then they wouldn't necessarily be eligible for the RWA jobs and supports. So typically these jobs and programs would be happening after they've completed their post-secondary. That being said, there might be opportunities for summer internships and summer work placements and experiences that an individual could then access an RWA job. But if an individual is a full-time student, then they would not be eligible.
Okay, thank you. Very good. I have a question for you, Sarah. So you mentioned that you will or can or you will identify the gaps and address them for the people that are seeking work. Can you give us some examples of like some gaps that you have found out and then you address them for the individuals?
Yeah, great question. Through the navigation and connecting with different people and hearing their experiences, we know that for some individuals, it hasn't been an easy fit to just find an employment agency or service that works for them. Some employment agencies who maybe don't have a specialty in working with people with autism potentially could benefit from some more training and support. So that's really been a gap that we've identified, that what we might refer to as more generic employment agencies, so individuals or agencies that don't specialize in autism support, we would then, identify that as something that we would need to work on. So helping those agencies to train them and better assist them in supporting candidates who have autism. So really with the RWA program, we're hoping to gather as much information and data on some of those gaps to then, go back to the government and say, hey, this is what we've noticed and this is where we need to address this. So that's definitely an example of one. I'd say, generic employment agencies, examples such as, Work BC. There might be a little bit of variation center to center or service to service on that autism experience. So providing supports and training for them certainly is something where we're trying to adjust that gap.
Yeah, very good. So I have another question for you. Sounds like this is a very popular program. I'm wondering if there's a wait list, and if there's one, what does it look like? How long is the wait list?
So there currently is no wait list for the Ready, Willing, and Able services. Yep. So typically, an individual can connect with me again by emailing or filling out that online intake form, giving me a call. And usually I'd get back to that person within about 2 to 3 business days to set up a time to do an assessment. So yeah, currently no waitlist, which is great.
Yeah, wonderful. So thank you, Sarah, for the very, very good presentation and also the answer to all the questions. So please know that this presentation is available on the Autism BC Facebook page afterwards, and also it will be available as a YouTube. And if you have more questions, you can email Sarah or call her. If you want the PowerPoints, please email me and I will send you the PowerPoint. Email to shui@autismbc.ca. Okay, thank you very much, Sarah.
Thanks so much for having me.
Yes.